Well, Charles, happy 250th birthday to the United States of America as of yesterday. How are you today? Looking much younger than 250. Quite sharp, I must say.
Let's hope. Let's hope. Yeah, no, things are great here out in Malaysia, and I did watch with interest the various celebrations across the country and the degree to which foreign nations were celebrating us. Japan, for example, um, and then you see this. Excuse me, this fucking idiot who's the mayor of New York City, and a collection of idiots, mostly young, many of them not born initially in the United States, who have the gall on this momentous occasion to attack America. I mean, Zoran Mamdummy is truly stupid. He has never studied American history. He certainly hasn't studied history in world context. He is uh, in the group, and it's an old playbook. You think of people like Che Guevara and others, Greta Thunberg, these young lunatics who get out of diploma mills, never, with a degree, get inserted into some cushy system, and eventually get pushed to the front, as AOC was, as the squad members were, um, as Zoran is. And now you have people like Zoran. There's some idiot who was on Elizabeth Warren's staff, Callie Walsh, I think is her name, who is 22 years old, in a hijab, at the funeral in Tehran for Khamenei, an evil bastard. May he rot in hell. And this bitch gives an interview on Press TV, something I was on many times, celebrating Khamenei as the most consequential leader of modern times. This is an American woman who was on the staff previously of Senator Elizabeth Fake Indian Warren. So you have a bunch of people who unseen gnomes are elevating into prominence. This picture here, this is not a picture representative of the residents of New York City. And in this speech, Mamdani is throwing shade at the founders, throwing shade at the Constitution, throwing shade at the United States of America, as if this approach is going to coax capital, badly needed private sector capital, into New York City. Now, this is a dangerous individual. And I would go so far as to suggest he's a threat to national security. Why? The capital markets of the globe are presently headquartered in New York City. And he is taking steps which a serious lawyer looking at raising, advising somebody, banks and companies, on raising capital in New York City, would have to think very hard about the risk factor section for any prospectus. Because if this guy can continue to do what he wants to do with no oversight, the nerve of him, for example, saying that in the recent Supreme Court decision on eliminating temporary protected status for Haitians and Syrians, that he, Lord High Executioner Zoran Mamdani, is going to welcome, he's going to flout the U.S. Supreme Court. On that issue alone, I would be, if I were President Trump's team, I'd be saying, now, wait a minute. We can't have a precedent where not only do we have rogue judges doing whatever they want to do, now we're going to have rogue mayors, maybe rogue city council members who are going to say, no, no, I don't like the Supreme Court decision. It doesn't apply in my city, my township, my county. This is a precedent that cannot stand unchallenged. And there needs to be, I think, concerted legal action against Zoran Mamdani's administration. And if it includes illegal immigrants, they need to be deported.
I think there was a question that he had lied on some kind of immigration document, putting his immigration status in question. Of course, Charles, the other thing that happened this weekend, subversive nonsense to try to overshadow the 250th birthday of this once great nation, is this stupid wedding of Taylor Swift to a gay football player where, people are leaving the stupidest possible comments. I just did a brief video here talking to some police, asking them, does Taylor Swift compensate the city for shutting this down. People think that because she got a permit to have her wedding, that this is all normal, or that because she earns tons of money and pays taxes that she gets to do this. Here we've got a mayor in Zoran Mamdani who's talking about having specific taxes if you own an apartment of a certain value, raising taxes even on just even people like me who hardly making, I mean, you know, compared to somebody laying in the street, you could say that I'm well off, obviously, but I can't afford to pay more taxes to New York City. Now here we have Taylor Swift shuts down. And by the way, this is not, oh, she got a permit and there were 4 cops in the park overseeing some protest. This was Midtown Manhattan shut down, businesses shut down, access to mass transit shut down. Major mobilization of NYPD in terms of helicopters, cars, hundreds of officers. And what? For what? She just gets to do this for free so she can have a wedding? It seems outrageous to me.
Well, and in addition, you saw that I guess you were going through a heat wave. I don't know if you still are, but there was the grid was under great stress. So what does the Zoran Mamdani administration decide to do? They decide to shut down power in Riverdale, which is a predominantly Jewish section of the city. You know, I mean, this guy is should not have, and likely does not have the discretion he thinks he has to do what he's doing. I mean, he just because he may have won the election, that doesn't mean you get to tear up the Constitution, tear up, you know, decide that you are running a sultanate in New York City. You know, you favor one religion over another. Now you're going to chase capital away from New York City just at a time when it really needs it. I mean, the real questions that should be asked here are, why does a city of however many million people New York City today has, why does it need to spend $127 billion a year? I mean, out here in Malaysia, I think it's 35 million people. And the gross domestic product, i.e. the total economic output of Malaysia, which is a thriving society, is probably, we could look it up, but it's you know, certainly not, you know, 10 times or 3.5 times 127 billion. So why does just the public sector in New York City need to spend 127 billion? That should be the question, not, you know, handing out more goodies and more freebies, deciding that the way you're going to pay for it is by taxing wealth, not income.
But they're not even taxing wealth. They're giving away services to Taylor Swift. Like, I would like to know, what does it cost to have that kind of I mean, I've rented helicopters. Flying one helicopter for an hour is like 15 grand. So you have a police helicopter flying all around. I mean, that's just one part of what was going on. The overtime, the loss in business revenue. So this says Malaysia's total economic output measured by nominal gross domestic product, which I know you love, is projected to reach approximately 516 billion in 2026.
Right. So what's the population of New York City?
8 million.
Only 8 million?
9 million? I don't know. Guessing.
Well, let's see what does Google say it is. I thought it was more than that. It's on the way down, I'm sure. And certainly the population of legal immigrants in New York City is certainly shrinking.
Yeah. The population of morons is exploding. 8.48 million.
Right. So if you take, and Malaysia's 35, so you use 4 times 127. So New York City is spending on just government alone per capita basically the total GDP per capita of Malaysia. It's crazy to spend that kind of money.
Stolen, wasted.
And New York City doesn't have an army, doesn't have a navy, doesn't have an air force. It's ridiculous. And in this day and age, what you should be doing is using AI to go and say, all right, how much of the repetitive drone, you know, drudgery task of the drudge tasks, how much of that can be cut out by AI? Now, how many deputy mayors can be eliminated by AI?
I don't even think we need AI, Charles. You and I used to go to the park. There's like two people there weigh 400 pounds each, doing nothing. Fire them. Don't need AI. This is just, we got to fire, before we bring in artificial intelligence, we got to eliminate all the official stupidity.
Right. Right. I mean, you could, as a guest, you could run New York City on $50 billion a year, easily. Easily. And then you could go and by looking at all the crooked nonprofits, you'd have a one-time gain, I think, in perhaps the hundreds of billions, putting crooked nonprofits who are based in New York City because it has very high combined city, state, and federal taxes, and therefore donations to a New York City-based charity should generate for New York City residents a lot of tax deductions. Go through and you root all that stuff out. And then actually what I would do, I would compare New York City to Singapore. And I would say, let's look at the approach that Singapore takes to attract capital and contrast it with the punitive approach that New York City takes against rich people who happen to want to live in New York City, fools that they may be. But let's do that contrast. And then let's ask Zoran to start explaining himself. I mean, you have in Zero Hedge yesterday, you had a piece on Zoran's speech, which dissected it bit by bit. Then you can look at, there's another thing in Zero Hedge today by Kunstler, who's a good writer, talking about what these knuckleheads in the Democratic Socialist Party stand for. And you have a quote, an ex-posting by, I think, one of the people who just won, is going to be a congressperson, saying that what she wants to see, I think it is, if I have this right, she wants to see white society eliminated, and she wants to piss on the corpses of white people.
Who said that?
I mean, this is an ex-posting. You'll see it. This woman is going to go into Congress.
Wow.
Right? I mean, no, there is such thing as anti-white racism. And, racism in all forms is intolerable. And you can't have that kind of, somebody who says something that's stupid, you're entitled to say it, of course, but I'm entitled to criticize you. And I think thinking people across the country, if you get up that county map, you got Hillary Clinton and others bemoaning the fact that there's an electoral college. Okay, you don't like the electoral college? Change the law. Change the Constitution.
Well, I think the reason they don't like it is because these are the mechanisms that are designed to thwart the tricks and games and cheating that they do. By the way, the reason I'm so interested in this phenomenon with Taylor Swift and her gay husband is because, not that I care about Taylor Swift, but because I think that this is a manipulation, that this is a socially engineered thing to jam the news cycle with these idiots. I can't tell you how many people, when I said, hey, this is a really, gross overreach and putting out the taxpayers and citizens of Manhattan to shut down the city and direct all this money and resources to this billionaire's wedding. There was so much reporting that they donated $26 million to charities ahead of the wedding. I can't tell you how many people think that means they paid $26 million for the security. None of these charities send money to the NYPD or the businesses around Madison Square Garden or any of that stuff. Some of them include, Dolly Parton and other things like that. So this is basically her getting a $26 million tax write-off and favorable press to sap the resources where Mamdani says we don't have any money. Why is he taxing regular people and giving all this stuff away for a party for billionaires? Literally, it's just a slap in the face. And people are there getting literally thrown pieces of cake like scraps to peasants. It was the most ridiculous thing, Charles, that I've seen in a long time.
And aren't Taylor and this Travis guy, aren't they white as well?
Well, yes.
So that's white privilege.
Exactly.
But the Democratic Party and certainly the Democratic Socialist Party are completely lost their way. And this is what happened. People talk about the dangers of monopolies in the private sector. Giving the kind of monopoly power to Mamdani and Democrats in New York City and New York State to basically, if you want to do something consequential in New York City and New York State, you've got to be on the right side of Mamdani and Hochul, right? Because if they decide,
And
you've
Tish
got
James.
and Tish James, you decide you want to do something, there are many ways they can fuck it up at the last minute, right? And so they create uncertainty, they create risk, not to mention the grievous levels of taxation. And for what? Why does New York City combine with state and federal? Why do they need to have the highest combined effective tax rate in the country? What's the money going for?
Theft.
And they can't even, the budgets aren't balanced. So that when you have public sector unions who are as powerful as these unions are, and you have people who are prepared to break the law, break many laws, to fund candidates, to just put a guy like Mamdani into office, it's a banana republic. And the damage here is so great. You can't, only a fool today would set up a new venture in New York City. Only a fool, right? And the smart people have taken their money out years ago. And I think it would be, if I were still in New York City running a business, I would be spending all of my time thinking about how to get out of New York City. Right. And you've got to believe that there are other people thinking that. If you're running a hedge fund, you don't need to be in New York City. Hedge funds, if they do well, make tremendous amounts of income for their employees that could be taxed, we tax federally, but that income doesn't necessarily need to be taxed in a city or state because there are many options across the country. If you're going to have a mayor, I mean, imagine the nerve of some punk who's never balanced a budget himself, never created a product or service, showing up with his media entourage in tow to make an example of this Ken Griffin, who, from starting with nothing, has become a mega billionaire, running one of the most successful hedge funds on earth. And he's decided that he wanted to spend $250 million on an apartment in New York City. I mean, shame on him for such a stupid idea, but he did it. And then the mayor's going to show up with the press crew and say, "Oh, nobody should have that much money." Says who? Right? If you want to go down this track, everybody in the United States of America is far richer than the overwhelming majority of poor people on the planet. Are we supposed to just give up everything that we have and just send the money to countries like Somalia, where people make less than, in total, $300 a year? It's a stupid argument.
Uganda.
Yeah, I mean, if Mamdani wants to live the socialist lifestyle, and by the way, he's not a true socialist. He's living in a fucking mansion at taxpayer expense, telling the rest of us that our thermostats need to be set at 78, when inside Gracie Mansion, people were quickly looking around, seeing that there was one room that was set at 54 degrees.
It's like a meat locker.
You know what I mean? I mean, this guy is a fool. And he's a dangerous fool. And so do you want to set a business up that, let's say, is going to go from being worth $100,000 to $100 billion? You really want to do that in New York City? Why? What's the point? And then you have this Ro Khanna, who himself is a rich guy, making headlines by saying there needs to be tax on billionaires. And then saying, well, when I said billionaires, I meant people who make 50 million, have 50 million or more. These people, let them speak, let them explain their policies, and vote them the fuck out of office.
Yeah, I mean, why does he get to decide? When does 50 million become 50,000? And just say, hey, forget it. Whoever's making money, we're taking it. And again, by the way, they're wasting it, stealing it, wasting it.
As Musk and others said, these are takers, not makers.
Right.
We don't need. I don't need any help from anybody at present thinking through what to do with my shit. I'm not asking for advice. And I certainly don't want some punk who has, never done anything significant in the private sector to advise me what to do with my possessions. I just don't need his help or want it.
Paul
Nobody
Pelosi
asked
is
for it.
crashing his car again, Charles. They're not taxing Nancy Pelosi. Doesn't she make hundreds of millions of dollars driving around boozed up, crashing, getting into hammer fights?
Insider trading.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it really, at this point, I think what's going on is this Neville Singham and George Soros and other people like the two of them are making a mockery. They want to crash the system because they and I and others know how to make money when the prices of assets decline. Most people don't spend time thinking about how to do that, but you can do that. And so these people have a vested interest in crashing the system. And by the way, Neville Singham is based in China. He's of Sri Lankan origin. He made $1 billion off the American system, more than that. And now he's funding groups, the protest organization, the protest industrial complex. He's funding that. Others are funding that. And again, it's one thing to express your view. That's fine. But to engage in activities that are designed to bring down the duly elected federal government, that you cross a line there. And to do that from, while you're based in communist China, I would have thought there's a pretty strong argument to take this guy. He's got to be breaking numerous nonprofit laws, right? Doing what he's doing, and he's got to be. I would have, if you're going to say that Catholics are the number one threat to national security under Biden. I mean, you don't need to torture yourself with that kind of quote logic to decide that Neville Singham and George Soros are threats. Soros has been kicked out of numerous countries for doing what he does through his supposed nonprofits.
Charles, you had a tweet there about Douglas McGregor saying that they're going to release the Wiener laptop.
Yeah, I mean, the most significant thing about the Wiener laptop, in my mind, is that Huma Abedin, who then was married to Anthony Weiner, was Hillary Clinton's closest aide, and in the time frame, really, going back to she was centrally involved, indeed, the focus of Chuck Grassley's inquiry into what was going on between June 29th, I think it was, 2012 forward, when Uma was simultaneously an aide to Hillary, working for the State Department, working for Teneo, and working for the Clinton Foundation. What was she doing? What do her email? I mean, as a guess, Hillary Clinton doesn't sweat any details. Those are left to people like Uma Abedin and others. And there were numerous supplicants for favors from the Obama administration and internationally from Hillary Clinton. And these requests likely went to Abedin. And the correspondence back and forth between Abedin and these supplicants is very material, because it would help you figure out what favors donors to the Clinton Foundation were getting from the Obama administration through Hillary Clinton and her minions. So this is a very important set of bunch of information which the deep state has had from the second keys were touched by Abedin. Legally, do they have it? I don't know. But they certainly, people within the deep state know exactly what Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were doing. And more important, they know exactly why the Obama administration did nothing to stop the gargantuan frauds that have been perpetrated through the various fake charities attached to the Clinton family.
Obama. Charles, we've got to take a moment here to break and head over to the First Amendment Forum. I want to thank everybody who is sponsoring the show on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/ crowdsource the truth. Somebody was using Subscribestar, the search engine that I put on Subscribestar, to say, hey, this video is missing. Can you put it back up? Because what's happened is sometimes these accounts that host the videos to these different platforms, they get knocked out by these rogue companies. And so if anybody finds any video that's missing, I'll restore it. So thanks to that person who became a new sponsor looking for a video, put it up this morning, had a nice exchange with that person. But we'll be right back.